Let's talk about what's going on with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So we're being gaslit, guys. We're being full blown gaslit. What we're hearing. So I'm moderately surprised, but also not surprised that Kamala Harris is now apparently going to be, at this point, the Democratic nominee. I'm surprised because she's so bad. She's such a disliked candidate. People do not support her. The people that I know who are tried and true Democrats, vote blue no matter who, you couldn't bribe them to vote for Donald Trump. You couldn't threaten their lives to vote for Donald Trump. They're messaging me saying, Kamala Harris, really? Nobody likes her. We're going to lose. That is the sentiment across the Democratic voting base. But of course, the elites that run the show are trying to gaslight us into believing Kamala Harris is a real formidable challenger to Donald Trump. The polls, they're claiming, we're seeing all these reports today with numerous polls coming out saying it's a tight race. Even Republican pollsters are claiming that it's impossible to tell, impossible to call who would win between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Are you kidding me? So let the gaslighting begin. Here's the thing. This is the most undemocratic process from start to finish. And now they're setting us up for, I'm going to be honest. I mean, they're going to, it seems like they're just going to rig it. And they're going to put Kamala Harris in. She's going to win. And they're going to say, but we've been telling you guys for months that she was extremely popular and she was going to win, even though she's incredibly unpopular. Nobody likes Kamala Harris. Tried and true Democrats who are vote blue no matter who. They would never dream of voting for you couldn't threaten their lives and have them vote for Donald Trump. They are telling me that Harris is they're panicking. They're panicking more with Harris than they are with Joe Biden. That is the reality of the voting base. They're not looking at Kamala Harris and thinking, oh, thank goodness we got Joe out. He was certainly going to lose. Now we're in a better position with Kamala Harris. No, the voting base says we're worse off with Kamala Harris. We would have been better off with Joe Biden. He could have beat Donald Trump, which is not likely, but he would have had a better shot at beating Donald Trump than Kamala Harris, who no one likes, who giggles her way through meetings, who was not dropped out of the 2020 primary before even the first primary because she had lost favor with everybody. I mean, this is a very bad candidate. But the establishment powers that be, who have ripped our democracy away from us, who have decided that they decide who is the candidate. They're not even going to have an open convention. They've decided that Harris is the person and everyone must rally and everyone must gobble this crap up that she's a real formidable candidate, opponent to Trump, and you're just going to have to believe it. And then when she wins, oddly, when we're all shocked that she's won and we're sitting there like, there's no way, they'll say, well, we've been telling you for months, and the polls have shown for months that she was winning. Look at this. Here's CNBC. Trump faces tighter race with Kamala Harris set to replace Biden, experts say. Really? A tighter race with Harris than Joe Biden? I find this hard to believe. I understand that Joe Biden is definitely mentally on the decline, so really anybody at this point would be better than Joe Biden, but Kamala Harris is deeply unliked. Here's the next one. Look, this is from NPR. I woke up this morning to this one and I could not believe my eyes. They are just trying to gaslight us. Republican pollster says the race is now impossible to call. What? Wow. Frank Luntz has conducted poll research for Ross Perot, Newt Gingrich, and Rudy Giuliani. He said that after seeing the response from donors to Vice President Harris's announcement, the race is now impossible to call. Quote, her candidacy has instilled a new sense of electricity, of passion that was missing from the Democratic presidential campaign till now. Really? Is that true? How is that possible when? So the Democratic National Convention happens 1 month from now. They were set with Joe Biden to do a virtual roll call, virtual nomination the first week of August because of an Ohio law that required the candidate to be named, the nominee to be named for the party by a certain date. Otherwise, they wouldn't be on the ballot. That date that Ohio had set was prior to the DNC convention. So the DNC had decided to do a virtual roll call to nominate Joe Biden in advance of the DNC, in advance of the DNC convention. But Ohio then went and changed their law. And now that is not a factor that they're pushing up against. So you would think that, especially now with Joe Biden stepping aside and there's all these potential other candidates, you would think that they would then have at least somewhat of a democratic process happening at the convention. But no, they're not. They're pushing for a virtual roll call to just shoo in Kamala Harris so that there is no vote. So not only were the people robbed of the ability to vote in a Democratic primary when there were other candidates running in that primary, RFK Jr., Marianne Williamson, Dean Phillips, there were other candidates, and other candidates maybe would have jumped in had they known that Joe was going to step aside. I'm sure you would have seen the clown car of candidates coming out of the woodwork like what we saw in 2020. But they robbed the people of that. They said, no, Joe Biden is it, and he's totally fine. They gaslit everybody, knowing that he was not well. And they gaslit everybody saying, he's fine, he's fine, he's fine. Oh, Kamala Harris was part of this. She said, oh, he's fine, he's totally fine. Don't worry about it. And then when he's not fine, then we see the full court press of the Democrats trying to get rid of Joe Biden. Nancy Pelosi finally says, that's it, Joe, you really got to go. Turns out Nancy's in control of everything because she's in control of all of the Democrat fundraising. So when she finally said, Joe, it's time to go, that's when Joe had to go. And now they're trying to gaslight us into believing that Harris is an actual formidable opponent to Donald Trump, which is bull. And they're going to do a virtual roll call rather than having what they're saying. They want to avoid, is what they're saying, chaos at the convention. Now, remember, these are the delegates. This isn't the voting population. These are the delegates. So they want to avoid chaos at the convention from their own delegates. Why would there be chaos at the convention? Because Kamala Harris is not actually popular. She's not popular with the people, and she's not popular with the delegates. So screw the people, screw the delegates. They're just going to shoehorn her in, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. They're going to do it virtually in advance, and they're just going to ram her down the throat. So, I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's believable. I'm genuinely shocked that they're doing this. I thought for sure they'd got to get rid of Kamala Harris, but I only thought that under the scenario that we actually live in a democracy where the vote matters. So in my mind, if the election's not rigged, if you're living in a world where the election counts and people's votes actually matter, then in my mind, they would have never, ever opted for Kamala Harris because she's just totally unpopular. And you're not going to win over you need, in order to win an election, the independents. You need the people like me who could go either way with the vote. You need the independents who you've got to actually convince your candidate is a better candidate. Kamala Harris does not convince anybody of that. She's worse. She doesn't stand for anything. The establishment loves her because she's a puppet, a total puppet. Let me just play for you some of the clips from, so we're not getting a real democratic process. We're not getting a primary. She's barely going to have to campaign. So let's play clips from her previous campaign. She did run at one point in 2020. So we have seen her as a candidate. We have seen her answer questions as a candidate, which, by the way, they're saying another thing they're doing to rip full on democracy away is the reports are, as of right now, is that she won't even debate Donald Trump. That they're thinking, what's the point of having a national debate? This is what they're trying to gaslight us with. So not only are they gaslighting us with the polling, oh yeah, Harris is neck and neck with Donald Trump. They're now gaslighting us and saying, oh, she's not going to need to do the debate, the national debate with Donald Trump, because really the election's going to come down to 3 states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and they mentioned one other. Okay, so it's going to come down to those 3 states. They're really going to be the deciding factor. So there's no sense in having a national debate. That's what they're trying to say. This is how the Democratic Party operates. There's no democracy whatsoever. Why do they want Kamala Harris? What is it about her that is making them rally around her? And it's not what you think. You might think it's because she's a woman and she's Black and Asian. She's half Indian, half Black, and she's a woman. They love that just so that they could put that out in front of the voting populace and say, see, look, we're really diverse. But that's not why they like Kamala Harris. They like Kamala Harris for the reasons I'm about to show you. Let's go ahead and look at this clip here. This is Harris at a CNN town hall when she was running in 2020. Now listen to all of her answers to the questions.
Do you believe that Americans should have the right to vote at age 16?
I'm really interested in having that conversation.
Senator, yes or no, do you support financial reparations?
I support that we study that. We should study it and see.
Elizabeth Warren is here, as you know. She said that she supports student loan forgiveness for 42 million Americans.
Yeah.
Would you go that far? Do you support that?
Well, I support anything that is about reducing the debt of student loans, and I think that's an important conversation to have.
But people who are convicted in prison, like the Boston Marathon bomber, on death row, people who are convicted of sexual assault, they should be able to vote?
I think we should have that conversation.
Do you believe that Americans should have the right to vote at age 16?
So she had a bunch of non-answers there. She says, let's have that conversation. Let's have that conversation. We'll have that conversation over and over and over again. So that's not a leader. That now, on one hand, I kind of like that type of answer of, we'll talk about it. We'll investigate it. Let's see what's up. But when it comes to a leader, when you're looking for that leadership in a country, you want somebody who has a vision, and she doesn't have a vision. Her vision is, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. They like that. Why? Because she's malleable. They can convince her into anything. So the establishment has a puppet. They're essentially going to take the strings off of Joe Biden rather than handing over the reins, like you would think, from one president to the next. No, they're just going to detach the puppet strings from Joe Biden, and they're going to attach new puppet strings to Kamala Harris. That's why they like her, because she could be puppeted. Here she is. She was on a radio show, and they asked her to explain Russia-Ukraine conflict, and this is what she said on that radio show.
If you're watching any level of news, even social media, you're seeing everything that's going on right now in the Ukraine. Break it down in layman's terms for people who don't understand what's going on and how can this directly affect the people of the United States.
So Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia is a powerful country. Russia decided to invade a smaller country called Ukraine. So basically, that's wrong.
Well, I mean, I guess she's not wrong, but Ukraine is a country, Russia's a country, Russia's a bigger country next to Ukraine. They invaded. That's wrong. Okay. And what does that exactly have to do with the United States? Should have been a follow-up question on that. So again, you've got somebody who's not showcasing executive leadership ability. This is the epic debate that ended her candidacy. This was Tulsi Gabbard just stabbing her on the debate stage. Watch this.
Congresswoman Gabbard, you took issue with Senator Harris confronting Vice President Biden at the last debate. You called it a, quote, false accusation that Joe Biden is a racist. What's your response?
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris, your response.
As the elected Attorney General of California, I did the work of significantly reforming the criminal justice system of a state of 40 million people, which became a national model for the work that needs to be done. And I am proud of that work. And I am proud of making a decision to not just give fancy speeches or be in a legislative body and give speeches on the floor, but actually doing the work of being in the position to use the power that I had to reform a system that is badly in need of reform. That is why we created initiatives that were about reentering former offenders and getting them counseling. It is why, and because I know that criminal justice system is so broken, that I am an advocate for what we need to do to not only decriminalize, but legalize marijuana in the United States.
I want to bring Congresswoman Gabbard back in. Your response,
The bottom line is, Senator Harris, when you are in a position to make a difference and an impact in these people's lives, you did not. And worse yet, in the case of those who are on death row, innocent people. You actually blocked evidence from being revealed that would have freed them until you were forced to do so. There is no excuse for that. And the people who suffered under your reign as prosecutor, you owe them an apology.
So that is what effectively ended her 2020 candidacy. She was already on the decline. One of the reasons why Kamala Harris was on the decline, I would say one of the main reasons. I mean, Tulsi just kind of put the last nail in the coffin and just really just dug that knife in and twisted it. But really, the reason why Kamala had started to lose out with the voters was because she couldn't answer questions. And not only could she not answer questions, but if you remember in 2020, she was known for flip-flopping all of her stances. Practically every statement she made while on the campaign trail, she eventually walked back. So she would be on the debate stage, she would make a statement, and then afterwards she'd be asked by, it was like she was on the debate stage, she would answer based on what she thought would be the right answer, or maybe even what she believed, or what she thought the audience would respond to. And then it was like her handlers called her and said, hey, that's not the right answer. We don't actually believe in this. We don't agree with this. We don't like, Medicare for all or the Green New Deal or whatever. And so they would, and then, so then she would be pulled off the stage. And when she'd be interviewed later, she would change all of her answers. So she was known for flip-flopping. So people just thought, what in the world? This person has no, and that's important. The fact that she kept flip-flopping, she would say something on stage and then be pulled, it looked like she was being talked to by her handlers, and then she would flip her stance. That is what they want. They want the person who they can guide, they can attach the puppet strings to, and they can manipulate. They want that person. And Kamala Harris is that person. That is why they are trying to force feed us Kamala Harris. They want somebody who they can manipulate, somebody that they can just look, this is the right policy. This is what we want you to do. And she will just smile and nod and say, I'm happy to be here. I can't believe I'm president. And they'll say, do you want to keep being president? If so, then keep doing what we say, and she'll do it. That's why they like her. And of course, they have to deal with her because Democrats have spent years and years and years telling the voting base that you're racist if you don't vote for a person of color. You are misogynistic if you don't vote for a woman. They could not replace Kamala Harris logistically. I kind of wondered how they would do this, because it would be really hard for them to replace Kamala Harris with all of the force feeding that they've done of the Democratic base of, women of color, and how difficult that would be to replace her with somebody like Andy Beshear, who might be the governor of Kentucky, who people might like because not because he's a white man, but because he is a Democrat running a Republican state. And that might then win over those independents that you need. The blue base is going to vote blue no matter who. So it doesn't matter who you shove in front of them. They'll vote for the white man. They did it last time. They kept saying, no, we need women. We need women of color. That's why they had Hillary. And then they tried to put all of Hillary's resources were given to Kamala Harris when she ran for president. And then when they shifted to Joe Biden, the Democratic base didn't blink. So they're willing to vote for the white man if you give them the white man, because they'll vote blue no matter who. But it is a bad look for them to take the vice president, the current sitting vice president, and shove her aside for a white man, I suppose. But I thought for sure if they wanted to win, they would do it. But I guess that's only if they think they're actually needing to run a real campaign and actually get people to vote. If they don't think they genuinely need to have voters, if they think they can get around voters in the general election, I'm talking about in the general election. I'm talking about election meddling, like genuine election meddling. That's what I'm talking about. If they think that then it doesn't matter who they put in there. If they think that they've figured that process out and they know how to do it in a way that ensures that the person they want wins, then they can force feed anybody. Here's USA Today. They're saying the quiet part out loud that everybody thinks. Harris is awful, but left's love of identity politics means Democrats are stuck with her. Democratic delegates who are pledged to Biden must now throw their weight behind Harris or risk an open convention. They must do that even though they surely realize how bad all of this looks for the party that has spent the past 4 years accusing Republicans of undermining the 2020 election results. They also surely know that Harris isn't the best person to represent the Democratic Party, yet delegates must support Harris not only because of Biden's endorsement, but also because they're shackled by the party's radical embrace of identity politics. So for years, the Democratic Party has championed woke identity politics, and because of that, they're stuck with Harris. And so I guess they don't mind. They figured out that they can just they can get her to win. And when they do get her to win, they will gaslight us more, as they've been doing this entire time, gaslighting us into believing, well, the polls said she was neck and neck with Donald Trump. Guys, I'm just sorry. I find this extremely hard to believe, which is why I'm so skeptical of this. There is no way that Kamala Harris has a fighting chance against Donald Trump. Democrats need to select somebody else, but they don't need to if they don't need to. And I guess they don't think they need to. So if Harris wins, I don't know, things are going to get really bad. I think a lot of people are going to say, we thought 2020 was shocking. Many of us thought there was something very suspicious there. Maybe we weren't willing to say it was full on rigged like so many others were, but it was really damn suspicious, and we're not convinced that it wasn't. And if she wins, many of us who've been on the fence on that are going to say, oh, no, you guys are totally and completely. Somehow you guys have figured out a way to rig elections. And maybe, look, who's in charge of big tech has been left-leaning largely. We've known that. A lot of these big companies, they just want an establishment person that they can puppeteer. They don't care if they're Republican or Democrat, quite frankly, as long as they can control them, they don't care. So this is so completely outrageously suspect, but this is what they're doing to us. Keep your eyes wide open, pay attention. They're going to continue doing this to us. Harris is not popular. There is no way. There's no way, guys. Hey, guys, this was just a clip of a longer show. Catch the full show by going to KimIversonShow.com. It is free. It airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. You could go back now and watch this full interview. I highly recommend it. Again, go to KimIversonShow.com. Thank you so much for watching.